We got a lot to talk about. I am going to dig into setting goals today. And before you turn this podcast off, before you stop this episode, obviously, I'm going to make it fun and really educational. And I'm going to start by admitting that until a couple years ago, I hated goals. I didn't set goals. I was like, I don't know. I don't like, what if I just miss them? What if it's like I want that to happen, but like, that's about it. I really want it to happen and I'll work hard, but I didn't want to like set targets that I could just miss. Uh, that was dumb. And that's no judgment or shade, obviously, to you if you fall in that category, because I just admitted I was. But when I started working in operations and C suite and developing real strategic plans, and then obviously studying it in school, I really learned the power of stair stepping, like backwards, reverse engineering, whatever word you want to put to it, and setting goals that you monitor progress to. And if you miss them, oh well. Like, what if you meet at 90%? Oh no. Like, that's freaking great. And then inside of the mastermind, the Rooted and Relentless Mastermind this week, one of the members was like, okay, I see people setting quarterly goals, but like, how are they? Like, how do you actually set those targets? Let's talk about it. And now I'm here talking about it. Welcome to the Rooted and Relentless podcast. I'm Steph Rubio. What up? This is where strategy meets soul and scaling does not mean selling yours. And we get a little crazy here, a little wild humor, a lot of information, education, but like make it fun and valuable and things you can go run with today. So that will definitely be happening. I'm going to give you a framework that is not mine, that is very well known for setting goals that I find to be really helpful. And then I'm going to give you some specific examples too for different areas of your business to really help the pistons in your brain fire. So grab your notebooks and hold on to your tits. This one's for you. Let's do this, shall we? Let me get a sip of coffee in your ear. Okay. So I just briefly touched on like the importance of setting goals. It truly is important, and I highly encourage you to do it. It's so that you have something to measure and march towards, and intentionally. So you're not just out here willy-nilly like, I want to show up on Instagram more. That's cool, but that's a wish. Okay, that's not an actual goal. And why do you want to do that? What impact does that have on your business? That's what you want to think through. There's a couple things here that I think make setting goals really easy. There's two ways I like to approach this to get to these goals. One is I like to set one for every function of my business. When I say function, I mean marketing is a function of your business, operations is a function of your business, sales is a function of your business. You hear this a lot of different ways these days, like visibility. Well, that's part of marketing. Client experience is also a function of your business. Operations, like I said, finance is a function of your business. So that's one way you can approach it, is plan to set one for each of those functions for the year, or the areas that you really need to focus. Like if operations is your jam and you're already good there, I love like a good operational efficiency goal, especially knowing the rhythms of my business when I'm like, hey, the end of the year is going to slow down. So that's a great time for me to be planning the year ahead, thinking through other offers, cleaning up my back end, reviewing processes, whatever. So you can set it for each function. And when you do set them, regardless of what area of your business they're touching, the framework I like to use are SMART goals. SMART, like the word, SMART. It makes sure that I actually have a well rounded goal because, like I told you earlier, like I will show up more on Instagram. That's what is more. How are you measuring that? Right. So when we talk about SMART goals, I'll tell you what the SMART means. S is specific. You want to be specific, right? M is measurable. Like I just said, you can't measure more. I mean, you can, I guess. If you were doing one last week and this week you're doing three, then like that's more, yay. But what is measurable to you? What's the actual like number that you're targeting here? Achievable, that's like being realistic. Is this achievable? If you made 100 grand this year in your business and you want to make 1 million next year, is that achievable? Be honest with yourself. I mean, is that possible? Yes. Is it probable? What are you doing to make it happen? If you're doing pretty much all the same things, then that's probably a no. So make sure it's actually achievable. We can set stretch goals, but what you want to do with your goals is you actually want them to be achievable. So we have specific, measurable, achievable. We have relevant. So it needs to be relevant to what you're doing, what you do, what you make happen, and then time bound. So give it a time. So obviously, if you're setting a revenue goal for next year, like that's your time bound by December 31st of 2026, you're going to make this. Or if you take off the last 2 weeks of the year, more realistically, by December 15th, you're going to reach this. So that's where you're getting SMART: specific, measurable, achievable or attainable, relevant, and time bound. Use that to set a one sentence goal. It is pretty much that easy. You can check all these boxes, you can write it out as smart. But let me give you some specific examples so you can start to see yourself in this and also like how to break it up quarterly. So, first, let's talk about a revenue goal. Everybody likes to set a revenue goal. That's great. That's all the money coming into your business. Kind of important to know. We like to stretch that a little beyond this year. So a lot of people go with like a 20, 30% year over year. But what's realistic? That's what the attainable is. Again, is that realistic? If your offers are staying the same, how are you upping your prices? Like, what is the path to that? Which, by the way, is how I work backwards from a goal. I set the goal, and then you want to list everything to achieve that goal, all of the actions, all of the tactics. So if you're setting this revenue goal, then what are the actions you're taking? Are you creating a new offer? Are you upping your prices, etc.? How is more revenue coming into your business? But I'm going to give you some other examples too. Before we dive into that, when it comes to setting it quarterly, because I love to do that too, like set your long goal, but quarterly you want to be like having these mini targets that you aim towards. And when it comes to your revenue, think about it. If you do the same thing every year, like if you're retainer based and you have a pretty steady client roster, then it's probably as easy as taking that annual goal and busting it up 4 times, right? And then you have like your quarterly goals. But if you sell different offers at different points throughout the year, so if you have like steady retainer clients and then you sell course or something differently, and that opens twice a year, what are those times of year? And what are your target revenue goals for that specifically? Now you have maybe quarter one and quarter three are a little bit higher. Quarter two and quarter four aren't in your revenue and they still need to get you to that end goal, right? So you can break off mini targets and they can certainly be different because, again, they should be achievable, like actually relevant to what's going on and what you're doing. So let's look at a couple different functions of your business and an example goal. So marketing, right? This is your visibility, your demand, like what you're developing, how you're getting in front of people for them to see it and like creating that demand and that need for it. And a goal here, very similar to one that I'm setting, is publish 3 thought leadership posts per week on Instagram and Threads for 12 weeks to increase inbound leads by 25% by March 31st. So that's already a Q1 goal. You can set this for the year. That's actually what I like to do. I like to set it for the year, larger ones, or set it for 6 months or something like that. And that goal, publish 3 thought leadership posts per week on Instagram and Threads for 12 weeks to increase inbound leads by 25% by March 1st. You have so much there, so much that's measurable, right? So let's go in order for the SMART. So specific, 3 posts a week on the platforms that you're going to post on. That's very specific. And thought leadership, that's specific. So you know what you're posting, where you're posting, and how many times. Measurable overall, like yes, the 3 is measurable, but the real measure here is that 25%. You're going to be measuring if you're increasing your inbound leads by 25%. When you check weekly, when you check monthly, and then when you check again at that quarterly review point, right? Did you increase it by 25%? Achievable, no daily posting. That's not saying daily. So can you get to 3? If you had 5 here, if you had 7 here, what is achievable for you, right? And if 3 is it, you feel like that's it, that's what you're locking in. Relevant. It's directly tied to the health of your pipeline because you should know when we talk about pipeline, that's how many people think about a pipeline, shocker, that you need to be fostering these relationships with and nurturing to convert them into a paid sell, right? It's never 100%, rarely if ever. Let's say that you sell a digital workshop or something like that, right? A digital product, whatever. And you look at the past data from when you sold that, and you're like, okay, so of the last 10 people I talked to about this, 1 closed, right? I'm having conversations in the DMs and some emails, things like that, and 1 closed. So now you know 1 out of 10, and you want 10 people in this program or whatever it is you're selling, you need to foster relationships with 100 people. I kept the math easy there, okay? So that we could all follow. Know your numbers, essentially. Then that could be a target for you. And when you're looking at 25% here, so what is your inbound leads already? What is that 25%? That's what you know, but it helps with your pipeline overall here is that you're getting consistent leads in that you can then nurture and convert. Let's do another one. A sales goal might look something like close 6 new one-on-one clients at $3,000 by April 30th. You basically have all of Q1 and a little bit of April there. So you have 4 months to close 6 new one-on-one clients. And then you're going to stair step again, set your actions for that. But that's your goal. It's specific, 6 new clients and your one-on-one. It's measurable, $3,000. It's time bound, April 31st. It's relevant. And you want to list your tasks below that, your actions, what you're doing, what makes this achievable. And that could be holding 2 calls a week. right? 2 sales calls, and then following up with them within 48 hours, things like that that you're doing. Could all be a part of your goal or you're stair-stepping your way to that. You can have client experience goals. You can have operations goals. If the little frazzle is your feel, then it might be something like build and document 5 core SOPs by February 28th to reduce decision fatigue and in mid-time by 5 hours per week. So you're reducing admin time, you're helping your profit margin there. You are building out 5 core SOPs. This could be onboarding, offboarding, etc. So you're working on your operations and backend, and you have obviously a SMART goal here: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound that you can march towards. I'm giving you all these first of the year dates. If you look at your business rhythms, this is what you always need to do, which is, by the way, why goals are like one of the last things I do in a strategic planning process. You really need to start with that big long-term vision. You need to look at everything you're doing and then find your gaps in there and your opportunities and your target focus for the year. And then you set goals based on that, right? So this is kind of one of the last steps here. And then obviously you're actioning that throughout the year. Okay, short, sweet. I really wanted to give you something that has worked for me, someone who used to not like goals, hate goals, not understand goals, not track goals, not utilize them, anything like that. Once I fell into the land of SMART goals, I was like, okay, first off, it makes so much more sense in my brain to set this, to track towards it, to make sure it makes sense. At the end of the day, the goals that you set need to make sense for where you're trying to go and what you're trying to do. You should know your business rhythms. You should know when your people are most active and energetic and buying. You should know when they're kind of going into their cocoons, like December. So December 2026, pay attention right now. It's December 2025. How are your people moving and resting or purchasing or whatever? A lot of people are tired. A lot of people are distracted and busy because a lot of family stuff and kids stuff starts happening for the holidays, and their buying patterns change and they don't want to purchase. They just want to like relax. So you should be planning around that. And as of right now, like I said earlier, I'll plan some operational goals for the end of that year, for the end of the year. Like I had these goals for a whole year, but when am I actually actioning them? That's how I approach this. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you have any follow-up questions, I'll be on for a couple more days. Find me on Instagram at virtually_Steph Rubio. Tell me what kind of goals you're setting so I can cheer you on throughout the year. If you have any follow-up questions to this framework or anything you're like, okay, I need to do this, but I don't actually know how to turn it into a goal, or I don't know how to measure it. A couple things here. One, suggest that you review these quarterly for sure in that measurable component. So if you said you're increasing your leads by 25%, you want to tailor the metrics that you're looking at based on that. So some metrics I would look at are like your profile visits, your DMs, messages, link clicks, and things like that. That's what you're looking at to see if this actual goal is working. You want to review that quarterly and plan any adjustments. Maybe it's taking that down to 2 thought leadership posts and adding in 1 other kind of content. You want to be measuring this quarterly. I help people do that. We do a half day. It's called a quarterly business review. If that's something that you're interested in, if you're really moving into this like leadership CEO zone and you want someone to help you facilitate that quarterly reflection, so you can make sure that the data is actually telling you the story and that you're making decisions on logic instead of emotion, and not being reactive, but being much more proactive and leading your business where you want it to go, then you already know I'm your girl. So I'll drop some links in the show notes. So let's do this. Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Rooted and Relentless. If it made you laugh, nod along, or grab that cute little notebook of yours and scribble something down, please hit me with the SSR, subscribe, share, and review, as in leave a review. Don't forget to tag me on Instagram at virtually_Steph Rubio and tell me what you're reading this week. Seriously, I live for a good book moment. Thanks for hanging. Bye.